Howdy folks, Sapper here, aka Sean, and this is just another report for Next War Poland, the strategic surprise scenario, and this is turn 5, and I've conducted all the way up through the first strike phase. I'm getting ready to do supply, and supply is going to start getting a little bit harder just because I did a little bit of interdiction, which I haven't really done in the past, but I decided to kind of play with it and see how that works. And it was one of those kind of light bulb moments. I was like, wait a minute, if I interdict a road that the Russians are using for supply, that increases the movement points through that particular hex, and it negates the road. So basically, you can shorten supply routes and cause some really big problems with supply. So I didn't... the weather's been clear, so that's not going to affect supply at all. But the light bulb went off, and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute! I can do some interdiction, or I can attempt to do some interdiction." And all the spots, or all the interdiction attempts that I did, not most of them. Well, I wouldn't say most of them, but several of them weren't successful. So it's not as easy as it. You look at it and be like, "Oh, this should be pretty easy," but then you roll on the chart, and the charts are they're not always very generous. So maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But so what you're looking at right now is the NATO air units box. You've got your ready box, your flown boxes, and your aborted boxes. So you can kind of see just from looking at that box, yeah, there was had a little bit of stuff going on. So if you look over here, the stealth bombers and the B-52 and the B-1, those are what I use to do some of my interdiction stuff. I use the stealth units primarily for the interdiction because it's a little bit harder to shoot them out of the sky. And then, of course, I use my stealth fighters, I think. So some of these stealth fighters here, I use those as interceptor support just in case something got detected. I think I used it for the B-52. And then, you can see the various state of all the different units right here. And then let me move this up here. Sorry about the glare. I think that's a big problem with just about any war gamer that uses plexiglass, is you're always going to have some kind of glare. Even if I was in a room that just had normal lighting, the normal lightings or the regular lights are still going to cast glare. I happen to be in a room that's got windows, which is great because you have plenty of natural light, but obviously you're going to get glare from that. So here's my air superiority box. Now there were more planes in both sections, but I used some of those for interceptor support for the strike missions. So that's kind of where we're sitting at the moment with available units on both sides that can do interceptor support as well as B interceptors to try to intercept, incoming strikes. So that's what's left. It was another contested turn as far as air superiority goes. I was very close to getting Allied air superiority advantage. Try to say that real fast a couple of times. So they missed it by like 1 or 2 planes. So it's slowly starting to turn into the Allies' favor. The longer this goes on, the more favorable it's going to be for the Allies, because the Allies continue to get reinforcements, whereas the Russians and the Belarusians do not get as many reinforcements. So the longer it goes on, the better it is going to be for the Allies. Oops, sorry about that. And then that's pretty much as far as what we have in the flown or the ready box for strikes and combat support. These are what's in the flown box, and these are there. You can see there's a lot in the aborted box, which is not good. That means they'll be out. These guys are usually going to be at, it'll take 2 turns for these to get back into the rotation. So aborted is not good. Yeah, your plane's not destroyed, but he's going to be out for a couple of turns. And then we've got our display right here. You can kind of, if you need to, you can pause on that. So there's the display, and now we'll move back over to the operational map. So let's see what happened here. So up by Gdansk and a lot of the main action up in the port area. So you can see here that arrow represents, I tried to interdict that spot. So that didn't work. I mean, I do have these Marines here that are basically preventing, or in this supply phase, I haven't checked for supply yet, but that's what I'm getting ready to do next. These Marines basically keeping supply from getting to this group here. So these guys are all going to be out of supply, which is a good thing, at least for the NATO or the Allies. It's not good for the Russians, but it's good for the Allies. But I also wanted to try and interdict that to make it, you know, just add a little bit more insult to injury as well. And it will also, if that would have been successful, would have affected supply coming down to here as well. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. Let's see here. And that was just an artillery strike. I attempted to target, I don't remember. I think it was these, the Marines that were in this stack up here. And managed to cause, I think, a strike 1. There was an artillery strike here. I think it was, yeah, that artillery unit there attempted to, I think they attempted to strike the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, and of course it wasn't successful. I usually try to, if there's a Polish, or if there's a US unit with a stack of other stuff, I usually try to attack the US unit. I think it's just a, you know, it's a moral thing, right? You know, you kind of got to look at it from, hey, if we can beat the Americans, because the Americans are the most powerful units on the board. They're, you know, have the best military units, some of the best military units in the world. So I figure, you know, any country that's going to go up against a coalition is going to attack the Americans first, because if we can demoralize them, and we know that, you know, Americans have a very, you know, the longer stuff goes on, the less of a desire we have to be there. So you can cause a lot of conflict at home by doing that. So that's kind of my rationale when I attack, you know, American units over other units. Let's see here. We interdicted that unit, so that will affect supply coming down this way, you know, from basically from up north, because supplies trace from up there. It'll come down here, so that will affect the supply there. I think I attempted it was an airstrike on this headquarters unit, was not successful. Let's see what else we got. The Russians tried to target that supply unit, because that supply unit is the only thing keeping this stack of units here in supply. So I was not successful. I believe it is 4 mobile supply, it's 4 motorized movement points. So that's 1 motorized movement point. And then to get into these rough woods, it's 3. So that's a total of 4. And so this unit here is the only thing keeping these guys in supply. So if the Soviets or the Russians can knock out that, we could knock these guys out of supply, which would in turn help these units move south. Let me see, that's interdicted. I believe that was from a random event that was interdicted. Let's see here. Let's change that a little bit. Successfully interdicted that hex, which will affect units over here from getting supply from Belarus, which is over here. I believe we can probably try to trace supply from somewhere over here. I did try to interdict this hex as well, but was not successful. So Belarusian units are going to have to, because of this interdiction marker here, will have to trace supply from this hex all the way over to here. So we'll see if any of those guys are out of supply. This artillery unit here, I believe, tried to hit the 82nd, was not successful. We have this Italian headquarters here, which I placed on the map because there was a rule that I had missed. When a unit is drawn from the cup and his headquarters is not on the board, then you also place that unit's headquarters on the board with them. So these guys were drawn a couple of turns ago, and I never drew their headquarters. So I just I pulled their headquarters out and I placed it here. So their headquarters here, did a headquarters strike on that unit right there. And I think that's about it. Yeah, I can kind of see what's going on here. Things are looking bad up here for the Russians, and probably going to be slowly getting worse, because I have this amphibious assault group of Marines here, and I'll have them land in the same port as the other Marines. So now we're going to have basically, I think each amphibious ship has like 3 battalions of Marines on it. So we're going to have like 6 battalions of Marines that are going to hold some stuff down. Get that in focus. There we go. And then, we got this little bit of action going on in the Southern Baltic here as well. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on now. Turn 5. The pendulum has been swinging in the Russians' favor. It's starting to lose momentum. NATO is still, as far as victory points go, they're still way behind. But the momentum is starting to shift, and the Russians are slowing down a little bit. Just another quick thing that I thought about while I'm looking at it. So if you look here, so also during the strike phase, you can use cruise missiles and regular ballistic missiles. And I didn't use any this time on either side because NATO only has 3 points. America has 3 cruise missiles. The Russians have 4 cruise missiles, and they only have 2 ballistic missiles. So the Russian missile supply is getting real low. And I'm kind of saving them. I'm holding on to them for when I have a unit that's really weak. Maybe a unit that has a strike 2 marker on it, or a headquarters that has been reduced, or something like that. I'm being very picky with what I'm going to start using my cruise missiles and ballistic missiles on, just because I don't have that many left. So as far as strikes go, airstrikes, yes. Helicopters, yes. And then headquarters and artillery strikes, I'll continue to use those because those have plenty of those. But cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, not so much. And then, as you can see, I think the Russians have 100 and it looks like 14 points, as opposed to the 9 of the NATO guys. So I don't plan on using nuclear or chemical anytime soon either, because as of right now, the Russians again still have the advantage. So there's no reason really for them to use something like that, because as soon as you start using nukes and chemical weapons, that side starts getting penalties to victory points. So anyway, there you have it. Glad to be back playing again. I don't know, I'll probably get a couple of turns in this weekend, or hopefully. So anyway, until then, we'll see y'all next time. Bye.